Lucid Motors earnings may be a huge catalyst to send the stock a lot higher, and that's what we're going to be going over. Analyst expectations as far as the revenue is concerned, but really, what is the biggest reason why Lucid Motors earnings may make the stock go crazy? You guys probably don't have a clue, so that's what we're going to talk about in this video, as well as just go over the short interest data, where I think Lucid Motors will go, the option chain activity, because we are seeing a quite substantially large gamma squeeze that has been unfolding over the past several weeks, but is likely to continue throughout the next couple of weeks. As well as that, go over the Rivian valuation, how this actually does support and suggest Lucid Motors to have a similar but smaller valuation at the same time. Arguably, I think Lucid Motors should be worth more, but we're not going to get into that too much into this video. Let's stop the talking. Let's get straight into this video. Hit that like button for me. Consider subscribing to the channel. If you guys are new here, we talk about everything that'll make you guys a ton of money. Trades, stocks, cryptos, whatever it is at the time to grow your net worth and to reach financial freedom as fast as possible. So if you guys want to be part of it, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on the video. Let's talk about it. So on Friday, Lucid was down 2.33%, down in after hours 0.07%, which is a pretty muted day overall because of the major rally that we have had with Lucid Motors. So we did close the day at $43.90 per share. Still an incredible last couple of weeks. I am up substantially, I believe still over 100% on my long position for Lucid Motors. Now, let's talk about earnings, because this is a very difficult thing to talk about in the sense of a lot of people don't realize what is expected to come out from Lucid Motors earnings. Now, on the one front, we are going to get some revenue numbers, and let's talk about that right now. So the average revenue forecast for 2021 is $76.14 million, and for 2022, it's $1.74 billion. And essentially, we're probably not going to see, obviously, anything close to these numbers. This is for the full year of 2021, $76.14 million worth. Lucid Motors only started deliveries just a couple of weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. So we're not really going to see any substantial revenue numbers, maybe from pre-orders or however they decide to present this information, but we're not going to see any major numbers. So analysts are not expecting that. If we do get some good numbers, a couple $1 million of revenue, I think analysts would like that, but that's not the thing that investors are going to be paying attention to. What investors are going to be paying attention to is going to be guidance and what the company is expected to basically sell throughout the rest of 2021 and 2022. How many pre-orders are now in the books, because these are refundable pre-orders. I believe, what is it, like $3,000 you can reserve, maybe less than that. That was for the $169,000 vehicle. Maybe it's less than that now. Haven't checked in a while. My bad on that. But that could be seen as revenue, and investors are going to want to see how many pre-orders the company does have. Now, I do expect some kind of good announcements coming out, because Lucid Motors does not have to have an earnings call for Q3. They didn't deliver any vehicles. There's really no reason to, unless there was some big announcements that are going to come out. And even the fact that Lucid is generating revenue, actually delivering vehicles at this current moment, is a big deal. Why is that a big deal? Because the Rivian valuation is off the charts. This valuation is insane. Rivian is only expected to deliver about 156 vehicles by the end of 2021. That is, 400 vehicles less than Lucid Motors, and the market cap is $110.83 billion. That's an incredible valuation. That prices in a ton of future growth. Whereas Lucid Motors at the current moment, their valuation is only pegged at $71.11 billion. Now, one could say, and I'm along the same lines as this, that just startup EV companies are just overvalued in general. It's a fact. Lucid Motors and Rivian, really those two, they're overvalued at the current moment. To go up over 100% on a couple deliveries, a couple hundred deliveries, it is overvalued depending on your time frame. A lot of investors, like if you buy Lucid Motors or Rivian for book value right now, if you're a value investor, you're not touching these stocks. They're not worth close to this 70 or $110 billion valuation. Now, if you're buying this for the future, if you're buying this for 3 to 5 years from now to build into its valuation, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm a huge fan of Lucid Motors, and to be quite honest, if you haven't got any, I think you want to own some Lucid Motors. I'm obviously not a financial advisor, not a financial planner, or anything else in between. But the point here, if Rivian has a $100 and almost $11 billion valuation, and Lucid Motors only has a $71 billion valuation, and they are arguably a better company, in my personal opinion, obviously, then it does suggest and support Lucid Motors' current share price at almost $44 per share. But let's circle back to earnings, because I think there's very low expectations, and that's what it comes down to. When you're talking about earnings, it comes down to what the expectations are from analysts and from investors. If Lucid Motors can just say a couple great announcements, bring in a couple $1 million more of revenue, whatever the case is, use your imagination, then that will beat the expectations, and that should act as a bullish trajectory or sentiment to send the stock much higher. Mix that, like I said, with this insane valuation of Rivian, then I do think it suggests a major rally, as well as the data does suggest this. So let's talk about that. And the biggest thing that is influencing Lucid Motors at the current moment, why we've been going up so much, is obviously, if you guys don't know, the option activity is insane with Lucid Motors, and it has been for quite a while now. So a lot of contracts did expire out of the money, specifically at the $45 strike and the $44 strike for this Friday. But even heading into next week, you do see a lot of option activity. Thousands for open interest that is held either in the money currently, and thousands on each individual strike that is just out of the money. At the $44 strike, about 3,300. At the $45 strike, about 10,380. 3,200, 2,500, about 5,000, 2,700, and 14,000 contracts that are held up until the $50 strikes. You are seeing a longer lasting gamma squeeze than I even had anticipated, but it's gains. I'll take it either way. And that's how the whole entire option chain does look. And if you guys are unfamiliar, even some of these contracts that say December 17th, some of these that people got in earlier, let's say the $30 strike, as the share price stays above like $40 or just key levels for a long amount of time, getting closer to that expiration date, the gamma goes up. The people that are losing on the back end of these calls, so that shorted the calls or sold the calls short, are the ones that have to go out and buy shares on the open market to remain delta neutral. So that is what we're seeing. Even if some of these farther out expirations are deep into the money, you will see continuous buying, and that's exactly what we've seen, because Lucid Motors has went up about 100% just since I made my big investment in this September 5th, and that was actually my sister's birthday. So I'll probably always, well, I always will remember that, because that's when I decided to go big on Lucid Motors. In hindsight, perfect timing on that one. Now, if you guys want access to all of my buy and sells for stock options and or crypto, like I said, in real time, whether it's a day trade, swing trade, or long-term investment, check that out. Link down below in the description. But let's talk about the short squeeze side of this trade as well. So the current short interest of free float is estimated at about 8%. Take these Ortex estimates with a big grain of salt. They are very off on some of our other favorite stocks like AMC. Just the estimates, you can't really pay attention to them too much. But the settlement day for the exchange reported short interest data was October 29th, and that came in at about 10%. So I think that's more reasonable. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 9% flat. In that range is where the short interest is. And relative to the volume that we had seen before this rally, and even what we are seeing on a daily basis now, it's a considerable amount of shares that are sold short at 43.44 million shares, or at, I should say, the exchange reported short interest shares was about 54.22 million shares. So definitely a significant amount. As far as the share utilization, we are at 55.60%. It's, you know, relatively speaking on the lower end. There's a decent amount of shares that still can be sold short, but I don't think at the current moment you want to be selling Lucid Motors short just because of the Rivian valuation. Once Rivian does come tumbling down to reality, which it ultimately will, that's when Lucid Motors may just take a pretty substantial hit as well. Free flow out on loan estimated at 7.57% as well. take it with a huge grain of salt. And finally, onto my position on Lucid Motors. Market value of $13,143, up about $6,700, 104.19%. Average cost of $21.46 on 300 shares, bringing my portfolio diversity to about 28%. On these cover calls, I got waxed on these guys. No exaggeration. I got waxed on these. And I didn't want to go, I wanted to go further out than the $42 strike, but I guess I just didn't see that it went out further. I think they added strikes like right after I made this trade. But I essentially sold my right, basically agree to sell all 300 shares at $42 per share, which is a win. It's about a 100% gain, a little bit less, about a 97% gain on my total equity. If you include the premium, which is $250 per contract times 3, 600 and what was it, about $645 for agreeing to do this, then it's over 100% return on my overall position. But like I said, if Lucid Motors is over $42 by February 18, 2022, I'll have to sell my shares at $42. Hopefully, we will come down before then. I think we will. And then it'll, let me get out of this easier. If you're somebody in my same situation, here's a little trick for you guys. So keep in mind what these contracts are currently to get out of this and to not have to sell your shares at $42 or whatever your strike is. Keep in mind, $1,070. I have 3 contracts, so essentially I can go out a little bit further on the option chain, go to the next expiration, say the May 20th, 2022, and all I have to do is, obviously you want to sell one that is higher, so I sold the $42 strikes. For February, I would want to sell at least the 43, 44, 45, and you could do that. All you have to do is collect more than $10,070, what you would have to pay back to close out those excuse me, those call contracts. So I could do that with, let's say, the $50 strike for $1,150, and essentially once you close out of the other ones, you're going to be down substantially, so you want to reopen some. But in this case, you'd only have to sell your shares at $50 instead of $42. Make some potential upside, make some additional premium. Only risk is if Lucid Motors goes crazy again, it's going to be hard to do this the second and third time. It becomes very, very hard to do this. Just keep rolling it. It's called rolling it over, but it gets harder after the first time. So just be careful when you do this. You really want to try to time the top. But that is basically going to be all for this video. That's really what you guys need to know. I think just the earnings overall, low expectations mixed with possible good announcements and Rivian's IPO valuation could send Lucid Motors much, much higher. So drop that like on the video, consider subscribing to the channel, all the good stuff. Links in the description of this video for free stock. If you guys have not signed up with Moomoo, Webull, Public, check those out. You get totally free stocks just for signing up, and the link for the buy and sell alerts, like I said. So you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the next one.